Role of a government. So we say role of a government. Role of a government means the function of government, that means in a country, in a society, in a nation. So what does government do? So before we talk about what government do, we need to understand that entity that controls the society, which we call government. So what is government itself? I said government is an institution which controls a nation based on laws and constitutions to ensure a steady economic growth. So government will not rule a society. Government will rule a society based on laws, certain rules and regulations that governs the society. But these rules and regulations will not come until we have a constitution. So the constitution is what the government will use to control the society. Do we get it here?
Yeah.
So government will rule the society, but not from their mind. They rule it with laws and constitution. Do we get it? So the government is not somebody. Government is an institution. Do we get it?
Yeah.
So government is what? An institution. That's a combination of group of people, group of think tanks, group of knowledgeable things that we have to put together then to rule the society. So why government is ruling the society? Why is government ruling the society? To get what we call economic growth. So government will put rules and regulations. Government will follow the constitution to ensure that every society is what has an economic growth. That means the society or the economy of the country is improving. So when the economy of a country is improving, that is what we call economic growth. Do we get it?
Yeah.
So the main objective of every government is to ensure that the economy is improving. Do we get that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I said government maximizes the social welfare of the public. Who are the public? The people. So government ensures that we are able to get everything we need to get. That's our social welfare. That means the society is conducive for us. Government ensures that whatever we need as human, whatever we need as citizens can be provided for. Do we understand? So that's our social welfare. And government does it for who? The public. Not just one, the people. Not just me, not just you. All of us. In as much as we are under the government in this country. In as much as we are under the government of a nation. So the government must ensure that everyone is happy. The government must ensure that everyone is satisfied. Not just an individual. So government works for the public, the people. Do we get that?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is done through the following way. So what are those things government will do? These are the goals of government. So the first one, to achieve a low and stable rate of inflation. What is inflation? Inflation is a persistent rise in the prices of goods and services. A persistent rise. Persistent rise. Persistent rise in prices. This is inflation. Persistent rise in prices. So when prices of goods and services continue to go up or go higher, that's what we call what? Inflation. So what does government do? Government ensures that the inflation rate is what? At the minimum. Inflation is important in every business. We need to inflate prices to make profit. So if a product is bought, if the cost of a product is $1, we need to inflate it to at least 1.5 to sell. So inflation means that you're making profit. But inflation must not just be higher. Do we get the point here? So what does government do? They try to make inflation to be what? As low as possible, to the minimum. So that the prices can be affordable for consumers. Do we understand what they're saying here?
Yeah.
Inflation means that there's an increase in the price of goods and services. But businesses can't do without inflation because they have to inflate the price to maximize profits. But what will government do? Government will ensure that the prices that firms or businesses will put into that prices, on top of the cost price, will not be as high as they want it. Do we get what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
So that's what we call to achieve a low and stable rate of inflation. Government will not allow us to have a persistent rise in prices, because inflation means that there's an increase in rise of goods and services. That means every now and then there's an increase in price. So government will ensure that there's no an increase in price every now and then. Do we get that?
Yeah.
So that's what we said here. To achieve a low stable rate of inflation, this will ensure that prices are stable and consumers can afford to buy goods and services. It also increases consumer spending. If the prices of goods and services are reduced and not as high as we think, then we are able to afford them. That means we can spend more. Do we understand? So a low inflation rate will mean that consumers are able to spend more to buy goods or services. Do we get that? So this is one of the role of government. The second one, to achieve low and stable rate of unemployment. What is unemployment? Unemployment is a situation whereby people that are willing and able are qualified to have a job cannot get a job. Do you get what I just said about unemployment here? Unemployment means that people who are able, who are capable, who are qualified to get a job are unable to get a job. And they are within the age to get the job, but they can't find a job. So when this happens in an economy, we call it what? Unemployment. Do you understand unemployment here? Yeah. That means in a country, those that are capable, those that are qualified, willing to work, are unable to get a job. That is unemployment. So what does government do? Government ensures that the unemployment rate in every society is at minimum. Do we get it here? Mm-hmm. So to achieve a low and stable rate of unemployment, so this will ensure that income level increases and households can satisfy their needs and wants. We can only satisfy our needs and wants as an individual if we have a job. If we don't have a job, we can't buy. Do we understand? We might have it in mind to buy, but because we don't have a job to give us the income to buy, we are unable to buy. So government will ensure that we can have a job. Do we understand? So, and if we have a job, what happens to our standard of living? It will improve. Our way of life, it will improve. Yes or no? Yes. Do we get that? So the third one is to encourage economic growth. What's economic growth? Economic growth means that the unemployment rate has fallen, the income level has increased, the output we are producing as an economy is improving, the inflation rate is low. That's what we call economic growth. So let's see. This will mean that the national output and national income of the nation improves. So government will ensure that there's an economic growth in our country. So what do? They ensure that we have an improved national output and an improved national income. So what is national income? National income, this is the value of goods and services produced in the country in a financial year. The value of goods and services we produce here in this country is our national income. Because when we render these services, we get income. When we produce these goods, we make revenue. So the value of what we make in goods and services is what we call national income. Do you understand national income? Mm-hmm. The value is national income. That means the monetary value of what we produce in terms of goods, in terms of services. Do we understand? Yeah. Then we have the national output. National output is what we produce. Do we get it? That will give us the national income. Do we understand? So what is national output? This is the total goods and services produced in a country. So the total goods and services we produce is our national output. The value of the total goods and services that we produce is our national income. Do we get the difference here? So government ensures both national output and national income improves. So it is the function and the role of government to ensure that our national income improves and our national output improves. Do we understand? Yes. The fourth one, to encourage trade and secure a favorable balance of payment. So what does government try to do here? To encourage other countries to trade with us. So government find a way of letting other countries understand that it is conducive, palatable for them to come and transact with us. So when they do that, what happens? They secure a favorable balance of payment. So what is balance of payment? Balance of payment is the sum of all transactions we do against other countries. The sum of our transactions with other countries. Do we understand? So our balance of payment is a statement that states the transaction we do with other countries. Maybe we export to other countries. Those things that we export, the financial terms we have, the financial statement we have for exporting to other countries or for transacting with other countries is written in our balance of payment. So government ensures that our balance of payment is what? Favorable. That means we are having a very stable balance of payment. Do you understand what balance of payment means here? Yeah. Balance of payment means our transaction, the statement of our transaction with other countries. Do we understand balance of payment? Yeah. So government ensures that this is also favorable. The fifth one, to reduce poverty and inequality in income and wealth. What do we mean by to reduce poverty and inequality What do we mean by to reduce poverty and inequality? What is poverty itself? What does poverty mean? Poverty means a country is not having a very stable standard of living. That is poverty. So, what the government tries to do, they ensure that the whole society can be free from poverty, even if it's not all. But we are able to balance things up. That is, they want what? Equality in wealth. So, government wants what? Equality. Equality in wealth. Though there can never be equality in wealth, but at least there's going to be a balance that every individual can afford to buy the needs, if not the wants. Do we understand?
Yeah.
Is it clear? Yeah. The sixth one, to encourage a more sustainable economic growth, which will lead to reducing pollution and waste. Pollution and waste. What do we mean by sustainable growth? Sustainable growth means that a country is taking decision regarding the future. So whatever decision we take right now must not affect those coming after us. Do you understand sustainable development here? Mm-hmm. Sustainable development means that whatever decision we take in terms of our economy must not affect the future to come. Do we understand? And how can we achieve this? By ensuring that we have a reduced pollution and waste. We don't waste resources. And we don't pollute our environment. Do we understand? I think we understand what pollution is and what waste is. Do we understand, please?
Yes.
Waste, when you waste resources, that means when you waste resources, those that are coming before, after us would not be able to meet them. So what do government try to do? They ensure that we don't waste. They ensure that we can reduce pollution so that the environment will be conducive and palatable for all. In order to achieve all the above, in order to achieve all these things, government must therefore understand how both micro and macroeconomics works. In the last class, we talked about microeconomy, which talks about the demand and supply of a country. And we talked about macroeconomics, which talks about the aggregate demand and the aggregate supply. So government must ensure that it understands how the micro and macroeconomic works. Because without the micro and macroeconomics, we don't have the economy. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Without micro and macroeconomics, we don't even have an economy. So government will ensure that they understand how both of them will work for the better of the society. Do we understand? Mm-hmm. Therefore, government must come up with economic policies which will include the following. So what are economic policies? Rules, regulations that determines what we produce, what we service, how we produce, how we service, what we get from outside and how we get them from outside of the country. So government will ensure there are policies. So without policies, there's nothing we could do. So government will ensure that there are rules and regulations that affect our aggregate demand and our aggregate supply, our demand and our supply. So they make laws that will protect what we demand, what we supply. Because if there are no laws that protect what we demand and what we supply, they can't be what we call economic goals. If there are no rules and laws that protect what we demand as an individual, what we demand as a business, what we demand as firms, and what we supply as individuals, what we supply as firms. If there are no rules governing those things, then there's no economic growth. So there's no economic growth. Economic growth can never be achieved without economic policies. Do we get it here? Mm-hmm. So economic policies will help us to achieve our what? Economic growth. Do we get it?
Yeah.
So how do government go about this? Government uses the demand side policies and supply side policies. So demand side policies and supply side policies. Demand side policies talks about the demand of a product, the aggregate demand and demand. And supply side policies talks about the aggregate supply and supply, which is another topic. Do we understand?
Yeah.
So what we need to know and understand is that government will use economic policies to ensure that we can have economic growth. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all about that.